CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
All right, thank you for tuning in. I am here with Brent Stokes. He's with Blue Signal Search, and we are at Streamline Asset Management User Conference. We are in Greenville, South Carolina. Brent, hey. Welcome to CMMS Radio.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting. It's busy and buzzing in here.
Yeah, and I hope everybody can kind of tolerate the noise because we actually have some important stuff to talk about. I connected with you during lunch and found out that you focus in on placement as it relates to, recruitment as it relates to the maintenance and reliability space. And
that's right.
I'm always talking a lot on the podcast about the skilled trades, the fact that we've got this huge gap and all this, but there's a bit of a surge now where younger generations are coming up. But in the arena of placement, I want to just ask you a couple of kind of random questions about what are you seeing when it comes to developing the talent that can enter this big, massive arena of maintenance and reliability and asset management. And then I'm going to follow you up with some of the challenges that come with that.
Let's do it. So what you see with the talent workforce development right now, it's varied, and there's not a industry-wide way of doing it. Some people come up through the ranks and they started out, turning wrenches, and then they end up having a knack for the software, and they move into that space, and they may never have had formal training. It's what they're learning from the people that come before them. That's a really common thing that you see within maintenance and reliability. But then you also have schools, universities that are turning out really qualified people. Clemson's right up the road from here, and they've got some incredible programs that tend to feed into this industry really well. There's a lot of other universities, University of Wisconsin, you've got UT Austin. There's some really big name schools that have structured programs that are going to get people up to speed really with a variety of CMMS type studies, and they're going to come in, maybe not with the hands-on experience, but they're going to be able to step in and ramp up pretty quickly. I think that where you're going to see a lot of the challenge with the workforce, though, is actually an issue that's not, and I know you said you're going to follow it up with issue, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Oh, you're good, man. Go.
But you've got a whole workforce that is trying to come into their own, but you have all of this institutional knowledge with the boomer generation that's largely retiring. And so, one person today is doing the job of three people. And employers largely don't realize that what they have is that situation where they've been blessed for 20, 30 years with, Jim or whoever, and now Jim's saying it's time for me to retire, and they're starting to identify all the different areas that they've impacted the business. And they're realizing they need three of these people, and there's not three to every one person. We haven't replenished the population enough to actually produce the workforce that we need.
Yeah.
So you get this weird place where there's huge demand for skills, but you don't have enough people getting those skills quick enough to take over.
Yeah, and I look at kind of the landscape of even my own history growing up and being from the Midwest, and I bring this up a lot when I talk about the skilled trades and how we have this kind of much smaller group to pull from, and at the same time we're trying to develop the next generation of not just skilled workforce, but other practices that lend into this industry of maintenance and reliability, asset management, all of it. And I think at least the high school level, I witnessed the high school shop classes and things like that go away, and I'm not seeing a lot of them come back, but I think it might be coming back. But there's another thing that gets talked about a lot, where you mentioned Clemson, and
sure,
there'll be a lot of this talk about you don't have to go to college. You could focus in on the skilled trades, but in the college is where you're going to develop the actual engineers and some of those skill sets. But I think they're starting to incorporate in the college and university programs more maybe maintenance centricity. Is that a fair statement, or am I wrong about that?
I think you're 100% right. And this desk right here, I know the viewers can't quite see it, but we're right next to Reliability X. And George Williams, he is such a industry educator, and there's universities where you don't have to go and get an associate's, you don't have to go get the bachelor, but you can go get the requisite knowledge that you need to fill one of these roles through a certification program. And universities are offering that because they have the infrastructure. There's not a body that really does it super well right now outside of, a few of the certification programs like you would see on, some of the people that are in CMMS for a long time. They get some of these higher end certifications, but that's expensive and not approachable for a lot of people.
Right.
You get a university program where maybe they're able to go for $250 a course and slowly acquire a lot of this information. Like, that's a much more approachable track that the universities are offering. And so there's still a part to play within university, even though there's that return to maybe getting into the trades through apprenticeship or through mentoring.
That the apprenticeship and the mentoring, and it doesn't have to be maintenance and reliability. It can be other things. Like I have friends in the auto body industry, collision repair, and trying to create these apprenticeships gets that exposure that we need. And another thing, when you talk about mentorship, what's really something I've observed at some of these different types of conferences, just like this one, everyone is pretty interested in talking to the younger folks that are new to the industry or considering it. They love to talk about it because they know how rewarding it can be. And you don't always have to be a wrench turner. You could be someone that understands that, but you've maybe
done the workflow, you've done the processes.
Correct. And then now you can kind of speak to that from a different perspective. One of the things, now I know this isn't recruitment based or anything like that, but
game, let's go.
When we look at different conferences, big conferences, small conferences, or different companies selling technologies and helping people with their solutions, bringing in maintenance and reliability programs, there's a lot of them on the tech side that are selling solutions that have frontline customer-facing people that have no idea what they're talking about, yet they're talking about it and selling solutions. Have you ever seen anything like that or heard about that?
That's the traditional consulting, framework. You get someone that comes out of maybe a university type practice and they go into a consulting firm. And I'm not, saying that it's a good practice or a wrong practice, but they're going to get exposure to so many different environments in the consulting capacity. You see how one company's doing it, you see how this company's doing it, and suddenly after 2 or 3 years, they've had that fast track to become more of an expert in their field, whereas maybe they're starting, they don't understand the solutions they're pitching, and they haven't been on the shop floor. They don't understand the downstream impacts. They just see how other companies have done it and they're template matching, right? And one size doesn't always fit all.
Right.
But you see these consultants that the longer they're in it, the more they see the impact of those solutions. And that, I think, ultimately serves the purpose of taking outside perspective, and the people that are doing that role day to day that live and own the solution at those companies, they're learning from these consultants. So I think it's still giving back to the CMMS, like the reliability community, in a good way, where that institutional knowledge might live with those consultants a little bit more, but the people that are buying those hours, those bucket hours from the consultants, they're still getting the benefit of learning from them.
Yeah, I think there's other ways to turn the corner too. I mean, something just like this, what we're doing, and a lot of people do it now, we get forms of documented, consumable content that can be leveraged for learning, for teaching people. They could consume a podcast. I mean, I've got friends connected to me on LinkedIn that people could go consume just about anything that they have, and then they could ask a completely different individual, as long as it's the right individual, and they'll help them put together kind of the puzzle pieces about where they're understanding it properly or not. You mentioned Reliability X. I mean, they do at least 2 different training courses, like the CMRP course in particular. I'm working on it, but I'm kind of, I confess that I'm like, yep, I'm going to work on that tonight, and then I don't. And it's a self-paced course. And I'm not talking about that to promote it. What I'm saying is sometimes we get people that are on that shop floor that are a technician, but they want to round out those skills to actually move towards being a maintenance and reliability professional. And that can help if they consume the right materials, prep up and get ready for that certification, and then get around these people and talk to them. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You've talked to a lot of them. You've been in these environments. Do you find like at an event like this, I'm assuming you go into some of the workshops and sessions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find there's usually something new that you intentionally came to consume and learn about, or something that was surprising? And if so, anything so far today or anything you're planning to attend at this event?
Yeah, there's always, I'm really fascinated with a lot of the ALI type conversations that are going on, asset lifecycle intelligence, and there's AI all over the place. Everyone's talking about AI. How's it going to replace the workforce? You know, there's a worry about it and a fear, but when it comes to reliability, there's so many good things that you can start predictive maintenance, and that's maybe not it's been around for a little bit now. It's not something that's brand new, but how is AI starting to put that on a hyperdrive? And so I like learning about what are the future state of our workforce, what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Because if AI is really going to start automating some of these jobs, it's going to open up new ones.
Yep.
And largely, I think it's going to be the people that are turning wrenches that are going to be still, they have to be there. You're never going to get rid of the people that are turning the wrenches, right? You need someone that's on that shop floor, that's intimate with that, and you can't do away with it. So
you make a great point there, because I don't remember where I picked this up, but I'm thinking of something where that human element. I read a really great article, and I wish I could remember who wrote it. I think it was Mark. I'll think of it when we're probably done. But it was published, I think, as recently as today or sometime in the last year in Reliable magazine, and it was about the human factor and how when somebody's on the shop floor and they are those maintenance people that are there in that environment, there's certain things that they can see, feel, and kind of intuit when it comes to the performance of a piece of equipment or a certain part of an entire system, that they understand that maybe at some point the AI is going to help with a lot of that, but it's not going to do that thing because it just doesn't have that capacity, right?
It's a tool. It's not meant to be the entire worker. It's another tool in the tool belt. And the people that can adapt to it and integrate it into their processes are going to go further, I think. But with that reluctance to AI, you get so many companies that are going to get stuck. You saw it when you go to some of these companies and they still have all of their notes are on pen and paper and it's in a filing cabinet. And you're like, how are you operating? But you get AI on the other end of that spectrum and it's like you have so much that can empower you. Why are you not integrating this? And so there's that always push and pull, and it's a organization culture and outlook on it, but pen and paper is going away. You know, you have to adapt, and we learned that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up. I was talking to someone earlier today about it's shocking, kind of fascinating how many organizations that I can't even say by name that don't have a CMMS or an EAM or something like it, and some of them are doing incredibly well, and you wonder how on earth is this happening. But I think those are environments where they probably have a team that is really focusing on the basics, the fundamentals. They got a lot of good communication with the team. People don't sleep on the schedules, meaning they actually follow through on the various schedules, and a lot of that can be done without a system. The risk is when the people, like you said, retire. So in the boomer generation, you know, they call it the silver tsunami, and then my generation's right behind them, which they're getting pretty close. So we have to be thankful for, you know, the cowboys and cowgirls that have stuck with it, and we need to get that documented. So what do you think things will look like for what you do when it comes to placement and helping people get into these roles? What does the next 5 years look like for you as far as what you're doing at Blue Signal Search?
Yeah, with Blue Signal, you know, we don't just focus on maintenance and reliability. It's a big pillar of ours. We have different verticals we operate in, but it's interesting to see which industries are anticipating growth, which industries are anticipating some sort of net, and which ones are going to go through decline. And I think the conversations that we have are more consultative. It's not, hey, what's the job recs and let me sling 100 resumes at you. It's not spray and pray at all. I love the movie, The Patriot, you know, where he's teaching his kid how to shoot, and he goes, you know, we aim small, we miss small. And that's the approach, because anyone can go out, put up a posting or something. That we've never been that. People don't pay a fee to a recruiting firm to come in and sit with you and just give you 20 resumes. They could get the HR to do that.
Yeah.
They come to us when those people are hard to find and those people are needed because there's some sort of specific requirement that they're not seeing in those, people on the market.
So does that mean that when you're helping with placement, you're going those extra couple of steps to vet at more of an extreme level the talent and
That's right.
really trying to create a long-term relationship for where they're about to go next?
Yeah, and ideally, let's say that there's a customer who comes to us and says, we have this specific need, and here's the vision behind it, and here's why the typical applicant pool is not going to make sense. They need to have this particular type of manufacturing background, and they need to understand this particular type of equipment. That's our bread and butter, because then it's, all right, we're going to design our search, and we're going to craft our narrative and our story, and we're going to go after people that are happily employed today, the ones that aren't taking calls, and we're going to come alongside as a consultant as their career. So when the timing is right, we've already developed those relationships. That's why coming here, it's not about getting, 5 new clients. That'd be great. That would be wonderful. But it's about developing those relationships. So when the timing is right, they already know that I understand their world. They already know that I have the connections to go and make 3 phone calls to people that are dead bullseyes because I've already understood their path and what their motivators are. And there's that match. You don't have the ramp-up time of let's go through 15 resumes and understand what's wrong with each one.
Right. So that's one of the best things about this whole kind of environment in conferences of any kind, where if the networking is strong, you're not necessarily, slinging deals. You're not necessarily selling. You are building the relationships, but you're building them based on a more comprehensive understanding of one another. What do you really do? What are you looking for? And that takes time. It
does.
It's not a fast thing, but...
And it's not a fixed thing either. It can change.
Someone,
my wife's having a kid, blah, 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 and suddenly they don't want to be on the shop floor for 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
They're wanting to start thinking about what does my life look like when my kid's growing up. And so staying close to people and having that genuine relationship is so critical.
Yeah. Now, before we close out, have you yourself spent a bit of time in these environments in manufacturing on plant floors? Can you give us kind of a little rundown on that, and then maybe one or two of your favorite things about that or this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent, depends on the clients, but before COVID I was on site a lot. It was very in-person business, and COVID shifted. It turned into a phone call game, and fortunately there was already a lot of connected relationships established, but probably the past 2 years a big shift has gone towards hybrid workforce, and there's that whole conversation too. How much do people actually need to be in the office versus whatever. But with being on the shop floor, when you walk it and you see how their particular process works, it's so critical as a recruiter that I see that, or that if I can't go on site, which I love to do, if I can't go on site, that I at least get to have a virtual walkthrough with the hiring manager, because what I'm going to be doing on my calls with candidates is building a vision. It's the cleanest shop floor I've ever seen. When we walked through, there wasn't anything that was just, out of place. In fact, I saw the person I was walking with, the hiring manager, he stopped to pick up a few things, and, he cares and is invested in this facility. Like, you'd be in a place where you're not seen as just a necessary evil, you're seen as a business partner. And so crafting that story and that narrative, you don't get all of those details through just phone calls. You really do. You have to experience it. You have to go on the shop floor. You have to go sit with the people at their plant and understand what their environment is, what is their world.
Absolutely.
If you can get into that, that's the magic code for recruiting, is being able to sell people on what it looks like. What does your life look like when you say yes to this job?
Yeah, it's important that you can have that picture painted, and you mentioned something about, a really clean environment. It's reflective of a lot of the different things about not only the shop floor, but the organization as a whole, how people feel about the place where they work. It tells you a lot. And it reminded me, because at the end of this week, I'm going to a facility, and I get to do a facility tour, meet with the maintenance team, talk about some of their reliability best practices so I can learn from them, talk about the CMMS that they use. I won't say right now, but I was told very specifically it's going to be one of the cleanest setups that I've ever seen, no matter what I've seen, and that's pretty cool. They're nearby. I can only tell you they are in Spartanburg.
Oh, well, then I've got a short list in my mind of what those are.
Yeah,
there's some good manufacturing out there. I'm from Greenville originally, and so I was back and forth to Spartanburg 3 times a week with those plants, and there's some big ones out there.
There are, and I think, when I got here, talking to a lot of people, there's a pretty strong presence of not just manufacturing, but there's kind of this sense of it's only places that are excellent. It seems like it's very purposeful somehow, and there's something going on around here. I don't know if it's in the water, but hey, I want to make sure people know, so that when we put this episode out, how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn about you, just have a conversation, maybe they need help. How would they do that?
Great question. My email is bstokes, S-T-O-K-E-S, at bluesignal.com. I'll give you my contact information. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me very easily, Blue Signal, Brent Stokes. But send me an email, give me a phone call. My number's listed on my LinkedIn profile if you want to look me up that way. But that would be the best thing you could do if you're having questions about an aging workforce and replacing people. If you have a question about a hard-to-fill position, I might not be able to help you, and if that's the case too, I can at least point you in the right direction. I can say, here's what I would do if I was in this particular situation.
Good stuff, man. I really appreciate you being on here with me.
Thanks for the invite. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that it comes out okay.
I think it will, and a lot of people that follow the podcast, they kind of know if we're at a conference, we're going to get some noise, but I want them to get to know you, and if they do need help, they can reach out. So we're going to close it out. Thanks for being on CMMS Radio, Brent Stokes with Blue Signal Search.
There you go. Yeah, thank you for having me, and have a good rest of your conference. Enjoy Spartanburg.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, and that's it, folks. We are closing this one out live from Streamline Asset Management User Conference in Greenville, South Carolina.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.